you can tell that I like this book because when I really like a book, I just start leaning closer and closer to the camera. By the end of this list, I'm just going to be right up in your face. The books in this video are the dark books. These are the Moody books. These are the thrillers, the pirate book, the mermaid book, the Peter Pan retelling, the horror novels. Like, these are the ones that I read this summer that were decidedly not cozy and definitely not heartwarming or light and fluffy rom-coms. And if you couldn't already tell, I loved these books, and then let's talk about it. Starting with Monstrous Beauty by Elizabeth Fama or Fama. This is a mermaid book that was very dark, which is what mermaid books should be. So this is about a mermaid who falls in love with a human man and becomes a human, and something happens. Okay. And then generations later, this teenage girl, Hester, meets a very strange, unique boy in a cave named Ezra. And she starts to try to piece together her past and her lineage. And there's just a lot of spooky elements. There's a lot of generational curses that we're looking at. There's a lot of like piecing together pieces of the past that makes this, it doesn't feel like a mystery in the way that we think of like mysteries as capers, but it does feel very mysterious in the way that like a very haunting, beautiful type of story is mysterious. So you're spending a lot of like, the iconography of this book is caves, like a beach at nighttime, a haunted church, tombstones, graveyards, crypts. I'm trying to give you elements because if I describe the plot in any more detail, I'm just going to give away the plot, and I don't want to do that. I really don't actually want to spoil any of this book for you. You're just gonna have to read it yourself. I think even, to be honest, more from the back of the book gives away the plot. It's really good if these are the elements of things that you like. If you're like, I like crypts and ghosts and bones and dangerous sirens who are murderous and, you know, curses and all kinds of stuff, then you're gonna like this book. As far as like that it is following a 17-year-old, it could be seen as YA. I don't think it does not read as YA. It certainly does not read as old school YA, which this was from 2012, I want to say. Yeah, 2012. It reads like it's from 2012, but it does not read like a 2012 YA. There are also some adult themes in here, and this was before trigger warnings became a thing. So I would definitely look that up on Storygraph of like the content warning of this that is depicted on page. That is dark, but that also I think for having it in the first third of the book really sets the tone for how dark things get throughout the book. But it was that darkness, like actual moody, tense, aesthetic darkness that I liked this, and that made the other elements so much richer. You know, this was not a hee hee ha ha, what color is your tail kind of mermaid book. They're dark creatures, and this was also had a lot more ghosts and a lot more on land drama and sort of like generational drama than you would typically be expecting, and I loved the mixture of that. It made the whole thing really mysterious and moody in a really, really cool, unique way. And I think that if you like all of the things that I said, then you're really going to enjoy this book. While we're on YA-ish, I also read this summer She Went Missing. I don't remember who wrote it because I unhauled it. I unhauled it because it wasn't a favorite of mine and I won't read it again, but I do want to talk about it because it was a thriller. I did not realize it was a YA thriller, and maybe this one isn't a YA thriller technically, but it did read like one, in that a lot of it didn't make a lot of legitimate sense into how these teenagers are the ones running around trying to solve this case, but it had a really interesting premise. So anyways, it's about this girl who, I'm gonna give a lot of context. I'm gonna actually like talk about this book. I'm not just gonna give the premise. This book is about this girl who is average in terms of like average wealth. She goes to public high school. Her parents have average wealth, but her parents' best friends are very wealthy, and their kids go to a private school. They live on the rich side of town, whatever, but they still remain best friends. And so every summer they get, for like 2 months, they have a beach house or a lake house. I think it's a lake house that they have, and they stay in together every summer. So her best friend is the daughter of this family. So they go to different schools throughout the year, but then every summer they spend the summer together, and they've just been besties ever since. When they show up this summer, there's posters everywhere. Some girls have gone missing, and everyone just like is feeling really tense because of these missing girls. And her friend for like a minute was kind of interested in that, but ultimately dismissed it. And then this summer, though, she starts getting really withdrawn. She's gone all summer long and she's like up to stuff. And the main character is like missing her best friend. She's sad and she feels rejected that her best friend keeps ditching her all summer long. And she's sad about that. But mostly the main character is distracted because she's completely head over heels in love with her best friend's older brother, who for the first time this year is like paying attention to her. They have a whole summer romance. They have a whole summer fling and they spend every minute together. So while the main character is really sad about it, she actually has other things that she's worried about too. Right at the end of the summer, the best friend doesn't come home. And nobody knows where she is. Nobody knows where she went. No one's seen anything. No one's heard anything. And the people that she had been telling everyone all summer long that she had been spending time with have no idea what they're talking about. They're all like, yeah, she hasn't been with us this summer. She hasn't been with me. I don't know what she's been doing, but it wasn't here. So no one has any idea. And it is just like this weird, tense, uncomfortable feeling that she's now become another missing girl. And then the summer ends and they have to go back to life as normal as possible when your kid is missing, I guess, and your best friend is missing. And then a whole year goes by. The main character's family still decides to go back and spend the summer together at the lake house to just try to cheer up the family and be there for them as they're still trying to find their daughter. When they get there, things just feel weird and feel off. So the main character teams up with the older brother. And it's weird because, you know, their whole relationship has fizzled and it's awkward, but they decide to take on the case. So together they start spending time together again, actually looking into where she might have gone. During their investigation, they find a missing cell phone, and the cell phone that the best friend had access to has text messages from her referring to the missing girls. So then that sort of obviously starts the search in a new direction. Maybe they don't know this girl, the brother or the best friend, you know, as well as they thought that they did. It was interesting. It was an interesting little journey. I can't tell you why I didn't like it. If I tell you why I didn't like it, it's going to spoil it. So ultimately know that I was invested enough to read it and finish it, and I did. And I don't not recommend it. It just wasn't my favorite because of the themes that were present in the book. It does feel very true crime, which is another reason why I didn't really love it. I'm not a true crime girly. I do know, though, a lot of people who are true crime girlies. And if you are, I think that you'll like this book because it has all the things that you want from true crime, because I think that it is a YA thriller technically, it does have a satisfying ending. So to that end, I didn't enjoy it, but it's not because it was like bad or there was something wrong with it. It just wasn't my favorite, which is why it has gone to a new life elsewhere from a recent Pango buyer. Now, while we're on the subject of thrillers, let's talk about an absolutely powerhouse thriller, Sister Butcher Sister by Katie Alden. And if you can believe it, this was a debut, okay? This book was bloody fantastic. I loved it so much. I had such a good time with this book. This is about three sisters. One of them is a serial killer, but you don't know which one. So there's three sisters. Every other chapter is in the POV of a different sister. And then in between each chapter is a POV from the serial killer, but you don't know whose head you're in. It's very good. It's about these sisters. They aren't super close. The oldest sister, she's just purchased her grandparents' home from her childhood, where they all used to come spend weeks on weeks every holiday, sometimes months at a time. They would stay at their grandparents' house. And they all individually have very different but very happy memories from their time in their grandparents' house. This sister moving back to this town where they all live has kind of thrown everyone's routines into disarray and started to bring up memories from the past. And as that goes on, we start to peel back those layers and realize that something is off about their experiences from childhood. Oh, something's really off. Oh, trauma. Oh, they're not okay. None of them are okay. Ooh, but which one is not okay enough that they became a serial killer? And so that was a really fun ride. I enjoyed this so much. This was very fast paced. All of the sisters were written so strongly that they were so distinguishable from each other. It was really interesting to keep peeling those layers back. There was always something else to discover. I just enjoyed this one so much. Content warnings all around. It is very gritty. It is very visceral. It's very graphic, not in a violence against women way, in a serial killer way. I had so much fun with this book. Like this was a hee hee ha ha good time for me book. Tremendous recommendation, and this isn't going anywhere. A few months ago, before the summer, I read Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. And this was my second attempt at Riley Sager because Riley Sager seems to be a lot of people's like ultimate favorite thriller author, and I love that for them. But the first book that I read, Home Before Dark, was very, very mid. I mean, it was a haunted house book, which ended up not being a haunted house book at all. So I was like, all right, maybe I just got like a run-of-the-mill one. You know, let me pick up another very, very, very popular one. Lock Every Door is about an apartments that are in this very upscale New York City apartment complex, which is, it's very strange. They rent out, they don't want the apartments to sit empty while they search for new owners of this apartment. But it has like a weird history, and she realizes that there's other apartment sitters before her who have gone missing. So she's piecing that together. The reading experience was fine. Riley Sager is a good writer, but I have qualms with the story. Let me back up and say, as I have said in multiple other videos, horror is social commentary. All horror is saying something. If it's good horror, it is commenting on something that we collectively find horrifying in our collective zeitgeist. And because this book straddled both lines, it didn't go far enough in that direction for me personally. I want the author to make a point with their whole chest, with their feet both on the floor. Say it like you mean it. And this book almost went there and then stopped. It didn't tell the whole story, and that bothered me a lot. I'm gonna spoil it. That's my spoiler warning to explain why I didn't like it. The spoiler of this, the whole point of this apartment is that it's a whole operation for the elite, the 1%. When they get sick and they need an organ transplant, they need donors, and they don't want to have to wait. So they hire and look for orphans and really down on their luck, usually millennials, who just need this opportunity to live in this place for free to save some money. And basically you're killed when you live there, and your organs are harvested to someone who lives in the apartment. Great. Great mollywopping you over the head with social commentary on the way that the rich oligarchs exploit the health and mortality of the working class. Yes. That said, the MacGuffin of this book is the apartment itself. And this apartment complex overlooks Central Park. And there are so many scenes that overlook Central Park. And I'm sitting there like by the pool, like, when are we gonna get there? You know, like when are we gonna dive into the fact like that, like when is the author finally gonna go there and talk about like Central Park? Like that's already the theme of the book. So when are you gonna say the whole thing though? And Riley Sager just never does. They're like, isn't that terrible that happened? And then like the end of the book is the survival of the main character. And then yeah, I think she burns down part of the apartment complex, but not the whole thing. And I'm like, the theme of the book was almost like, that's just the way it is. We as millennials have to figure out how to survive the system. And I'm like, why is that the end of the book? To actually dismantle an entire system of oppression, you have to start all the way at the beginning. You have to uproot it. And so that's why I was like, surely we're going to talk about Central Park and the fact that this massively wealthy, because like part of the mystique and lore of this apartment building is that no one's allowed in it unless you live there. And it is opulent. It's so, so, so majestic looking, and it overlooks Central Park. And I'm like, surely we're going to talk about it, right? And then they don't. And I'm like, how can you have a book that is about the systemic oppression of a people group and isn't that bad and not, if it felt like, to the degree that it was mentioned and then not talked about, felt weirdly intentional. It felt like a intentional omission, as if like, well, we don't have to get into that. And it's like, why the fuck wouldn't you actually get into that? That's part of the point. Everyone's involved. This isn't, it felt very, very intentional to not talk about the history of Central Park and the way that it came to belong to and be almost a quaint little privilege of living in the wealthiest part of Manhattan, is to have this Central Park view and who it originally belonged to first, and then who it originally belonged to before that. You know what I mean? Like a wild series of choices just to end the book with, but what are you gonna do? That's the elite, I guess. I don't subscribe to that. I think anything can be torn down, actually, and I think that anything can be uprooted, actually, if you just say it with your whole chest. Actually, I am too I'm too radical to continue reading these, like, let's dip our toe in to, like, books about the elite and like surviving, you know, these conspiracies or whatever. I don't have time for that. That's why I read horror and not thriller, is because thriller always feels like the most watered down, the most like coddling books for the white folk of like, this is a way for you to pretend to experience something horrifying and then know that the character got a happy ending after. Instead of horror, which is like, you need to confront the fact that what you find most horrifying is actually the reality for multiple people groups throughout history, including present day. Sit with it, bitch, and then do something about it. That's what I would like to be reading, which is why I gravitate towards horror and not absolutely whitewashed, pandering thriller nonsense from the likes of Riley Sager. So where I was like, I'm not going to say anything bad about Riley Sager, actually turns out, as I've been talking about it, yeah, say it with your whole chest, or don't write an entire book about a system of oppression next to Central Park if you're not actually going to tell the whole story. I can't. I have to move on. I have to move on from this. This is going to be a pain in the ass to edit. But anyway, that was Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. I have officially given Riley Sager 2 chances. I don't need to anymore. I know what I like, and what I like is like Kirsten White. I like social commentary, and I like for my thrillers to actually be horrors, as it turns out. What are you gonna do? And then I read Crossbones by Kimberly Vale. As you can imagine, this was from my pirate TBR, and this was my pirate book that I read. But I am about to be starting the sequel any day now, because this was a delightful time, an absolutely delightful time. I know and can tell that Kimberly Vale loves Pirates of the Caribbean and loves other people who love Pirates of the Caribbean, and this book was for us. Okay, it was like it had the hits. It was such a good time. This story was clearly well plotted. This character has, or this author has clearly spent a lot of time on this story and on the writing of this story. At this sentence level, there were parts of it that were really, really well written, and then other parts that was like, oh, okay, this author is perhaps newer to the craft, and that's fine. But what I have to say tremendously, while I am a very strong and harsh critic of like quality of writing, is that if you have a good story, or if your book is enjoyable, those things can outweigh the quality of writing quite easily. Like some of my favorite books are not the best books ever written. Like, that's very clear. And I think this is a good example of that. This book, this author cares about what she's writing about. She really has developed rich characters, a rich world, a rich premise. It's very good. I think it could have used some more developmental edits. I think it could have actually used 100 more pages. This book could have been beefier, it could have been denser, but because it was written, I think originally for an audience, it has a faster pace that I almost wish would slow down. But because of that, that's also what makes this book compulsively readable. This was a page turner. This was it was gripping. It was good from the start. I did not need to at all get into this book. And a lot of the others that I read and even really enjoyed needed time to like get into it. Right away, I'm invested in this book. BEEJ, what is the book about? Thank you for asking and keeping me on track today. This book is about, I'm trying to like, I have stopped myself 3 different times from just being like, so we open on an execution scene, and then just like going into the story. But you're not here for that. You just want a synopsis because I don't want to spoil anything for you. There's a pirate king. Uh-oh, he's dead. The death bell rings out, and that announces that like in just a week or 2 is going to be the start of the competition that chooses the next pirate king, because the pirate king died without an heir. There is more lore that also would entitle some specific individuals or a specific individual to take the throne based on this lore, because this is also a fantasy, but it's a fantasy with rules and strict world building, which is delightful. This is not just like an everything goes fantasy, everybody has magic pew pew out of their fingertips. Like, this is a very, very limited magic that exists in this world, which keeps everything grounded and keeps the stakes in a reliable place, which is also very high. Just good. It was just good in that like the story was there, and therefore it's not like that you're excusing like really shit writing. I want to be super clear. This was not shit writing. This was not even like bad writing. It was just new writing, you know? It's not seasoned yet. TJ Klune, for example, you can tell TJ Klune has been doing this a while, and you can tell, and they're writing for a very, very big brand publishing, which has very, very big name editors who are going through that book dozens and dozens and dozens of times to elevate that language to feel at a specific level. This one doesn't have that. This is like more written by an average person, and that's okay, because there is so much that goes into this that you can tell there has been so much work and effort put into this that has paid off in not making it feel like it's a first draft. I just can't say enough good things about this, honestly, because it was such a good time. This delivers on everything you want out of a pirate book. It has sword fights, it has stakes, it has death, it has you're on the water, you're on land, you're buried treasure. It has everything you want. It also has some romances. My biggest qualms, honestly, were with the romances themselves. They feel too rushed. I think should be more of a slow burn. I think that some of the things are too easy for them, and I would have liked more tension between our characters. That last one is a personal preference, not a necessarily legitimate criticism. However, I do think that it would have added some depth to the story, where the story was already quite deep. But if you're going to have romantic elements in your pirate story, I think those things might have helped it. I love this book so much. This sequel is called Dark Tides. It's right off screen, but it's right there, and I'm gonna read it so soon, in just a couple of days. This weekend, I'm gonna start it. Today is Wednesday. It's days away. It's days away from being in my brain. And finally, The Child Thief by Brom. This was my Peter Pan retelling pick for this year, because I just did a whole video on Peter Pan retellings, and I made a TBR, and I said this was the book that I was going to read this year, and that's correct. It's also on my top 10 must-reads by the end of the year. So this was an absolute must. This book is very different from what I thought it would be. I am currently 40% of the way through this book. I wanted to give an accurate update because I hate that I haven't finished this book by the time of making this video. I really wanted this to be a full wrap up to give you my full thoughts on this book. Unfortunately, I just haven't been able to finish it yet because I'm reading it very, very slowly, which is the sign of a good book. So I've been reading this very slowly, and I have enjoyed this a lot. However, it is a big departure from what I thought this book would be. I genuinely thought that this book would be more of a horror version of the story of Peter Pan, as in the narrative of Peter Pan, and less of a horrified reimagining of the world of Neverland and the entity of Peter. I knew that there would be a high departure of the character and entity of how, like, of Peter's lore, but I didn't realize that the narrative of the book that we would be experiencing would be so different. And so to that end, I don't have opinions on it yet because I want to wait until I've finished it before I form opinions. I just know that because my expectations are so different than the reality of what I'm experiencing, I'm reading it slower so that I'm more careful and I'm not just having an emotional reaction of like, this isn't Peter. It's fine. I knew that it wasn't. He's a fae looking vampire guy. He's scary. Okay. I understand that. I was here for it. And that's in fact what I want. There's just more monsters present than I certainly anticipated is one good way to say it. I wanted it to be dark, so I'm happy that it's dark, but there's just a lot more like otherworldliness happening and a lot more liminal space than I thought we would be experiencing in this book. I did think that there would be a lot of fae to this book, but it's just different. It's just different from what I thought it would be. And that's about all I can say. I can't say yet that I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed just because it wasn't what I thought it would be, but not necessarily because it's bad or I don't like what it is. I'm just still in that space of it's just not what I thought it was. And I don't have a therefore yet, but I will have a therefore later. As in, it's not what I thought it was, and therefore I'm disappointed, or it wasn't what I thought it was, and therefore it was tremendous. And I just needed time to process my feelings. So we're still in that processing space, and that's okay. Either way, this book is tremendously dark. It is very scary, and I was beyond sold from the first sentence. I was obsessed with the first sentence, and that first sentence of this book has kept me in through the 40% mark, even though it is not what I thought it was. So I am 100% going to finish this very soon. I have to finish this before I dive into Dark Tides. Like, my brain won't let me read both of these at once. I will finish it, and then I will come back to you, and I'll be like, this was the best book ever. Or I'll be like, what a bummer, because it's Brom. You know, and the thing is, even if it's like, what a bummer, that will be the most subjective take in the world. It's not going to be what a bummer this book was trash, because this book is very much not trash. It could never be trash. This book is so good. It's so good objectively. So I do want to have said this. It is very, very dark and scary. Okay, we'll come back to you, child thief. So those were 6 dark, scary, thrilling books that I have read this summer, and I'm dying to know what you've been reading this summer, and if it has also been dark, gloomy, scary, or thrilling. Are you more of a sunny, lighthearted, teehee, kick your feet kind of like reader in the summer, or are you like, give me the thrills and the chills? You know, I would love to know that. And I would also love to know if you've read any of these books, because if you have, talk at me about them. And as always, stay safe, drink your water, fight fascism, and happy reading.